Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. Today I have something very exciting for you. We're going to do some TOEFL reading to see how ready you are for the test. So get your pens and pencils ready and let's get started. A quick note here. The TOEFL reading section consists of 2 reading passages with 10 questions after each. We're only going to cover one passage today. However, if you feel you need more reading practice, you can watch these videos now. The text I've prepared for today is about the distributions of tropical bee colonies. It's from the KMF platform. As usual, we'll go straight to the questions without reading the text. This will save us a lot of time. The first question we have here is the vocabulary question. It asks you to find the word that has the closest meaning to the adjective rival in the passage. The options are established, competing, nearby, and different. Feel free to stop the video now and try to answer yourself first. Then listen to my answer. The correct answer is B. A rival is a person who competes with another person for something. The adjective rival then means competing with others. Always start by eliminating 2 answer options that are definitely wrong. The next question is the factual information question. First, take your time to answer the question yourself. Then check out my explanation. The first thing you should do with any type of question is to read the question itself carefully, so that you know what you're looking for. The question says, according to paragraph 2, some species of stingless bees are aggressive, mainly toward. So, we need to find animals that some species of stingless bees are most aggressive to. The keyword here is aggressive, but I may also come across its synonym or paraphrase in the text. As I scan the text, I find the sentence, Hubble and Johnson observed that some species of stingless bees are highly aggressive to members of their species from other colonies, while other species are not. As you can see, we're lucky to have the word aggressive in the text without any paraphrasing. The sentence says that some species of bees are aggressive to bees from other colonies. So D is the correct answer. Other colonies, different colonies. That's it. Remember that for this type of question, you usually only need to read 1 or 2 sentences. You don't have to read the entire paragraph. We'll skip the next question, because on test day, you'll only have 10 questions after the paragraph, not 13 or 14 as in these tests. However, if you're practicing at home, I highly recommend that you try all the questions. The types of questions you'll see on this platform are exactly the same as on the real TOEFL test. There are just more of them. If you get used to covering 3 passages with 13 or 14 questions, imagine how much easier test day will be with only 2 passages and 10 questions after each. That is why I always recommend this platform to my students. It really helps them prepare for the workload on test day. Now, the next question asks, why did Hubble and Johnson begin their study by mapping all the potential nest sites? The question is why, and the key words are study, mapping, and nest sites. I'm looking for a phrase that contains a combination of all of them, or their synonyms. The sentence I can spot almost immediately is, so, as one of the first steps in their study, they map the distributions of trees suitable for nesting. But does the sentence answer my question? No, because the question was why. This means that to find the right answer, I should read the sentence before or after this one. Since my sentence starts with so, the correct answer is most likely in the previous sentence. It says, they recognize that the availability of potential nest sites for colonies could also affect distributions. So A is the correct answer. They did this to determine if the availability of potential nest sites played a role in the distribution of bee colonies. The next question on our agenda is the sentence simplification question. For this one, you should read the highlighted sentence, break it down into a few main ideas, and then find the sentence that comes closest in meaning. You need to find the sentence that could replace the original one so that the primary meaning doesn't change. Let's read the sentence. The number of colonies in the study area was not limited by the availability of suitable trees, and a clumped or regular distribution of colonies was not due to an underlying clumped or regular distribution of potential nest sites. A rather complicated sentence at first glance. So, what do we have here? 1. The availability of trees didn't limit the number of colonies. 2. The distribution of colonies was not due to the distribution of nest sites. This is a simplified version of the sentence, but it's exactly what we need in this case. Time to look at the answer choices. Remember that some of the wrong choices leave out important information from the sentence. Some change it slightly, and some add facts that weren't mentioned in the original sentence. Take your time to find the correct answer. After scanning the answer options, I see that the correct answer is D. Neither the number nor the distribution of colonies could be explained by the availability of suitable nest sites. Trees are used for nesting, so trees and nest sites are synonymous in this context. Let's take a look at the next question. As always, feel free to pause the video and then continue watching for my analysis. What type of question is this? Many of you probably think it's the factual information question, because it starts with according to, but it's the inference question. How could it be the inference question you'd ask? Simply look at the question itself. It doesn't give me any keywords to find the right sentence in the text. Instead, it asks a general question that requires me to read the entire paragraph to find the answer. That is why I always say that you should do lots of practice tests and analyze each question you tackle. That way, you learn to recognize the questions regardless of their wording. In our TOEFL course, we have many lectures with detailed analysis of the TOEFL reading tests to make sure you get the deepest understanding of each question type and can approach them with ease. If you're struggling to get the score you need in this section, click on the link below to sign up. Now, how would we approach this question? We'll start by reading the paragraph and simplifying it as we go. Hubble and Johnson mapped the nests of 5 of the 9 species accurately. 1. The nests of 4 of these species were distributed regularly. 2. 4 species with regular nest distributions were highly aggressive. 3. But the 5th species was not aggressive, and its nests were randomly distributed over the study area. 4. So, what conclusion can we draw? Hubble and Johnson mapped the nests of 5 species of stingless bees and described the distribution patterns of those nests. The text says that 4 of the species had regular distributions, while the 5th had a random distribution. So the correct answer is C, which focuses on the distribution pattern of the nests. Remember, if you start looking for keywords in the inference question, you'll most likely pick the wrong answer, such as B, because it mentions the word aggressiveness. So you always have to make your own conclusion based on what you've read. Now, what about the next question? It's the rhetorical purpose question, and it refers to this very paragraph. Remember I always told you to do the questions one by one? This is exactly why you need to do that. We just spent time analyzing this very paragraph to answer the previous question. Now we have the next question for the same paragraph, which saves us a lot of time and allows us to answer within a few minutes. Let's get into it. For this question, you must first read the statement. The 5th species was not aggressive, and its nests were randomly distributed over the study area. Technically, you can already find the right answer and move on to the next question. But let me give you some tips for other questions of this type. You should always remember that the information in the text goes from more general to more specific. For example, information at the end of the paragraph is often an example or detail of something general that was mentioned before. That's why we'll read the 2 sentences before our sentence. Well, we've already read that Hubble and Johnson mapped the nests of 5 of the 9 species of stingless bees accurately, and the nests of 4 of these species were distributed regularly. All 4 species with regular nest distributions were highly aggressive to bees from other colonies of their own species. Our sentence tells us this: the 5th species The ones whose nests weren't distributed regularly wasn't aggressive. Its nests were distributed randomly. So the species whose nests were randomly distributed wasn't aggressive, while the 4 whose nests were distributed regularly were aggressive. This means that their aggressiveness depended on nest distribution, which makes B the correct answer. As you can see, I could have chosen the right answer right away, because I already know all this after answering the previous question. Question 8. Paragraph 7 supports which of the following ideas about fights over occupied nests? Another factual information question. Again, you should be able to recognize it even without its typical according to. We need to find information about fights over occupied nests. What many people do is start reading the whole paragraph, try to understand all the little details, get overwhelmed with information, and end up wasting a lot of time. Instead, what you should do is analyze which is the keyword in the question. It's occupied nests. Then I scan the paragraph, not read it, but scan it, and try to find the word occupied. How do I know I'm going to find that word? Well, if you take a quick look at the answer choices, you'll see that many of them mention occupied and unoccupied nests, which means that the contrast between the two should be made in the paragraph. I find both mentioned at the very end of the paragraph. While this contest over an unoccupied nest site produced no obvious mortality, fights over occupied nests sometimes kill over 1,000 bees in a single battle. So fights over unoccupied nest sites don't kill any bees, while fights over occupied nests kill a lot of bees. Now, I go back to the answer choices and find that A is the correct answer. They are more violent than battles over unoccupied nest sites. Again, this strategy saves you a lot of time and allows you to get to the right answer without too much effort. The next question is one of my favorites. It's the insert text question. It asks you to find the place in the paragraph where you can insert a sentence. Again, what I see students doing with this question is trying to really understand the text. As a result, they waste time and make a lot of mistakes. However, there are a few tricks that can help you answer this question quickly and correctly. Very often, your English level is more than sufficient to score high on the TOEFL reading section. The problem is that you either don't know the strategies for different question types, or you don't apply them correctly. Here is a recent example from one of my 101 students. He has a pretty good level of English, but he kept scoring 18 or 19 on reading. We had a few sessions where we analyzed the questions together, and I showed him the little details he should be watching for in the reading section. As a result, his last TOEFL reading score was 26. His level of English did not actually improve that much. It was his approach to taking the reading test that changed. He learned how to manage his time effectively and figured out what information to focus on and what to skip. That's all. In fact, the TOEFL reading section is quite simple and straightforward. And it's a shame that so many students lose time simply because they're working on the wrong things. I'm going to leave the link to the course below, so if you're struggling with the TOEFL reading section, feel free to check it out. Back to our question. We already analyzed this paragraph when answering the previous one. This is another example of why it's important to approach the questions in the same order in which they're given on test day. First, it says that Hubble and Johnson recognized that the availability of nest sites could affect distributions. Then, it mentions that one of their steps was to map the distributions of trees suitable for nesting. They found one thing, and then they found another thing. And then we have the question: what did these measurements show the researchers? Finally, there is a conclusion. If you remember, I mentioned that the information in the text usually goes from more general to more specific, which helps us a lot with this question type. The first sentence says, they recognized that the availability of potential nest sites for colonies could also affect distributions. This is general information. If we put our sentence in gap A, we'll give an example or more specific information about the same distribution. For example, A clumped distribution of nests might simply reflect a clumped distribution of suitable nesting sites. We are illustrating Hubble and Johnson's hypothesis, so the correct answer is A. Look at the gaps B, C, and D. We can't really put our sentence there because they are all so well connected. We are given an experiment, then the findings, one by one. Then a question is asked based on those findings. So the only option we have here is A. Finally, the last question is the PROSE summary question. For this question, however, I'd like to do a little test. I'm not going to take the question from the text we just analyzed. Instead, I'll show you a summary question that belongs to a completely different text. Why would I do that? To show that you shouldn't rely too much on the text, and that you can figure out the right answers even without reading it. The introductory statement says, in moving from water to land, ancestral plants overcame many obstacles to survive. So, even without reading the text, I know that I need to find examples of how ancestral plants or ancient plants overcame obstacles or difficulties to survive. So I'm expecting to find some examples of how they tried to survive. Think of Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. If you think about the movie and what his character had to go through to stay alive, you'll come up with some examples. How he had to crawl through the icy forest, how he had to find food, and so on. The same thing should be done here. Let's analyze the answer options. Take some time to study them first, and think about the options you choose yourself. I'd go with B, D, and E. Why? Well, C is too general. It looks like a sentence that would be written in the first paragraph just to introduce some information. Avoid options that are too general. You'll usually have at least one sentence like this. A is too specific. It's not about algae in general. It's about brown and red algae and pigmentation. There is too much detail, and it's hard to understand this statement without context. Too detailed, so let's eliminate it. The first thing you should always do is eliminate overly general and overly specific options. Now, F might have been a tempting option to choose, but it's not relevant to our introductory statement. The introductory statement tells us to find examples of how plants overcame difficulties, not what happened after. F says, once plants had overcome the challenges posed by terrestrial life, they prospered by becoming less diverse. So it focuses on the outcomes, not the challenges. Going back to The Revenant, it's more about what happened to the protagonist after he got to the village, not what kind of struggles he had to endure along the way. So I'm left with E, B, and D. These options tell me about different adaptations that plants had to go through. That's it. My advice as you practice is to start with the summary question, then do all the other types of questions, and finally come back to this one to double-check your answers. You'll find that sometimes knowing the text actually makes it harder to concentrate. You should refine your strategy without it. That way, answering with the text in mind on test day will be a breeze. That's the end of our reading test. I hope you now feel more prepared for the TOEFL reading section. As you've seen, it all comes down to practice, consistency, and knowing how to adapt the right strategy for each question type. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more TOEFL tips and tricks. And remember, scoring 100 plus on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little steps you take that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. See you next time. Bye-bye.